how we do it. That's how we do it. Yeah. That's how we do it.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Zeke, and with me here is Neva, and welcome to the Wednesday Developer Livestream. It's gonna be, it's pretty exciting, right? 3v3, 3v3 is awesome, but Vainglory 5v5 is out. We got the banner right here. 3.0 has arrived. I hope you guys have been having a fantastic time. And Neva and I today, we're just gonna be talking a little bit about the balance changes, about the update, and all the awesome things that are in the Sovereign's Rise.
So that's right. We're gonna be new update is out. 5v5. We've been working on this for so long. Everyone has been really pouring their heart and soul into this, and it's finally great to present it to everyone. And we've been doing a lot of testing, trying to get this perfect. And a lot of effort was put into accumulating the data to put these matchups. We didn't have anything to go off, right?
Absolutely. We've gone over a lot of iteration, and it's been super exciting coming into this 3.0 update. There have been so many changes that have been made to this map over the course of development, and first off, whether or not Ghostwing or Black Cloud spawn first, how long it takes for jungle camps to respawn, how long it takes for heroes to respawn even. We changed so many things from the Halcyon Fold to Sovereign's Rise that we really had to do a pretty big revamp of the whole game.
The game it went through so many iterations. We're talking literally dozens of iterations, guys.
Only dozens? Oh man.
Yeah.
We gotta step up our game.
We have a lot. Okay, dozens may not even be doing it justice. It is a multiple of a dozen, probably, or not multiple, but if you did dozens and some multiplied by some amount of times, you would eventually reach that amount of different iterations we had.
All right.
Anyways.
Sounds good. In any case, we're going to be hopping into a game real quick while we talk over the update notes with you guys. Niva over here staying up party real fast.
Yeah.
But just a couple of things we went over, the river move speed buff, how fast would we make players go? Would you be slowed walking against it? All of this stuff is just things we went over, trying to figure out what felt right for the game, whether or not we would have jungle shops, river shops, whatever the case may be, figuring out how leashing would work on the jungle camps, figuring out what exactly the bosses would do, what would our mythic monsters do, Black Claw, Ghostwing, how strong would the turrets be? There's so many different things. It's just, I'm so excited to have this out for you all.
And the map aside, which was its own monstrous undertaking.
Oh yeah.
We really had to like look at all of our heroes all over again, items all over again as well, and really evaluate what makes them like can we do to make sure they maintain what makes them feel special.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And speaking of those heroes and items, we're just gonna talk a little about all those heroes and item changes that we made coming into 3.0. So we got, Baron, really high attack speed, does a lot of splash damage. We lowered his attack speed a little bit, and the attack speed modifier on his rocket launcher, his basic attack, has been increased a little bit. So attack speed works a little bit better on him.
So what we had with Baron for a while is if you built attack speed, maybe aside from a breaking point, you were doing it wrong, right?
Oh man.
you weren't getting the maximum amount of potential that you could from this character.
Absolutely.
But that didn't feel good because now you were just shoehorned into building like Tension Bow, Sorrow Blade, Tyrants, and maybe a breaking point, right? You really had a very small amount of items to choose from.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so, but we wanted to make sure that he maintained that like heavy rocket launcher feel because he hits so hard. So we made attack speed skill better on him, much better really. He was actually just at 60% a few patches ago. Now he's at 80%.
Right. So it's a pretty substantial change for him.
Yeah.
Now building attack speed on Baron will actually be quite effective, whereas before he really relied on that double attack coming from his jump jets. Now he doesn't have to rely on that quite as much, but he's still very powerful when he does get those attack speed items. But moving on. Grace. All right, so this might seem like this is a decent nerf, right? Because her retribution ability cooldown per hit has decreased from 1.5 to 1.2 seconds, which is not huge. It's about 20%. But
it adds up.
Tell me a little about this one.
So Grace has been one of the strongest support captains for quite some time. Not only a captain, but also people are playing Weapon Grace to great effect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But one of the issues we're having is it's hard to regulate a hero's cooldowns in a team fight when they can reduce their own cooldowns by a huge amount as long as they are attacking.
Absolutely. But in any case, we're hopping right into game for you guys. We're gonna continue talking about these update notes, all hero and item changes, why we made these changes, and just helping you guys figure out, what do you want to do in this 3.0 update. Moving on from Grace though, Gwen, weapon ratio increased from 35% to 40%. Time between bonus damage reduced from 1.6 to 1.4 seconds.
I think this change makes Gwen one of the better weapon carries around right now.
Okay, tell me a little about this one, because looking at this, it means the playstyle for her is much more about that in and out play, where you're trying to get that one attack off with that boomstick, back off for just a moment, and hop right back in.
Exactly. So we really, Gwen's identity as a weapon carry is very based around getting that upfront burst. But the problem is the space between that burst is a little bit too much. So we lowered that down and made it feel a little bit better. So now Gwen players who play her right are gonna really feel good when they play it. Also gives a great range space.
Absolutely, and just playing it for myself on live, it's pretty exciting. Just being able to constantly be able to harass my opponents with that perk, and just constantly doing as much damage as possible. Really makes it much more exciting. All right, moving on from her though, Idris. This one is a bit, goes a little bit both ways.
Yeah.
Base bonus crystal power decreased from 50 plus 3 per level to 30 plus 5 per level. And in addition to a crystal ratio increase from 75% to 80%, a little bit of not really a huge nerf or buff. It's just kind of, it goes both ways.
It's more, so Idris was having this thing once he reached his perk at like right at 5 minutes. When he went to shop, he bought like double heavy prism, and all of a sudden he was hitting like a truck. You were like, his damage was not spec for that point of game. It was highly overtuned. But what we found out happening is that as the game progressed, he had that amazing mid game, but he hit late game and he hit it hard. And he sort of had a tough time.
Absolutely.
So we're essentially just moving some of his power from the mid game to the late game to retain that feel of Crystal Idris as a strong late game carry.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Idris is one of those interesting heroes where his weapon and crystal path are both quite powerful. The weapon path didn't really run into the same problem, so he wanted to make sure we adjusted it primarily for the crystal path.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Right on to Jewel, jumping into the Sovereign's Rise. Not a huge change right here, but just increase her overdrive, or decrease her overdrive cooldown on her B.
This is really gonna... Jewel has always had sort of this week, like 1 through 7. She's sort of, it's not super strong early on.
Right.
But she scales once she hits like mid-late game. She really starts to hit her stride.
Right.
And we really, if we wanted to, give her some love, but we wanted to make sure it was in the areas that, she herself succeeded in, or like lean more into her strengths.
Absolutely.
And so we buffed her level 8, because most jewels will max Thunderstrike always. But something cool that's really awesome for this is, because her Thunderstrike scales with cooldown and attack speed, that's going to make her cooldown on her be that much shorter as well once it gets that scaling going.
Right, so if you did choose to go that weapon duel and you get, say, a breaking point, tornado trigger, even bone saw, you'll be able to hit like a truck pretty frequently.
Yeah, you could almost, if you have a decent amount of attack speed, you'll be able to do like a Thunderstrike auto, maybe a second auto, then a Thunderstrike, or Thunderstrike auto, Thunderstrike auto. So you're gonna feel very fluid moving from one to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had made some changes to Crystal Jewel in the past few updates too. So Crystal Jewel, pretty effective. Weapon Jewel now, right up there.
Yeah, this is gonna, it helps both of them, really.
Absolutely.
And so moving on, we got Kestrel. So Kestrel's sort of a funny story.
Okay.
She's a incredibly high skill level hero. We see her in competitive play, but you know, she sort of suffers in hands that, you know, maybe don't use her as much.
Right.
Like me.
Fair enough, fair enough.
But, anyways, so what we did is, there was a couple things we wanted to do. One, CP Kestrel was not so hot this last patch.
Right, she's still pretty effective, but she always ran into the issue of, if you don't land those 4 glimmer shots, you are basically out of the fight for quite a long time.
So, especially because both Weapon and Crystal have their playstyles based around their glimmer shots generally, we lowered the reload time it takes for you to get those glimmer shots back. In addition to that, we gave her some base damage on her splash. This is gonna really help Crystal come into light a little bit better, but as well give Weapon a little bit better early and mid game, without having her scale like a monster in late game with her super crits, right? Like,
absolutely. All right, so Kestrel, give her a shot. Quite powerful still. Has always been powerful. Just if you play it just right, she is amazing. But one wrong step and you will fall. But moving on, one of those things that can catch Kestrel out is Koshka. And in the past few updates, we've made a couple changes to her, and she has been a little bit of a terror. But coming into 3.0, the barrier now on her B, in addition to, you know, a little bit, approximately the same movement speed as she has before, but a little bit of a change on her damage.
Yeah, so the barrier change for Koshka really sort of helped her, like, it really helps her really lean into her playstyle, being able to jump into a fight, run out of the fight, and jump into a fight.
Right.
Especially in the 5v5, when, you know, we were coming into 5v5, she needed that ability, right? So, but, you know, we didn't tune the rest of it as well, because, you know, there was a lot.
Yeah, one of the big things about our assassins in Vainglory is like we really want to make sure they have that in and out play pattern where, similar to Taka, where you jump into a fight, you can use your Kaka to get out. Yeah. Koshka also needed a little bit of that love, where she was able to jump into a fight with her Pouncy Fun, use that Trolley Death, get a few basic attacks off, and without the barrier, she kind of explodes. So we wanted to make sure that coming into those fights, she had at least a little bit of buffer to at least let her get those basic attacks off.
Yes. And so her base movement speed is a little bit down, so she's gonna have to rely on her perk a little bit more. Her damage and on her empowered and the spin is down.
All right.
But we didn't want to like completely like hurt her, you know, really nerf her. So we gave her 5% crystal ratio back, meaning if she builds a decent amount of crystal, late game she'll come back into light.
Absolutely.
So she already fell off late game a bit. We didn't want her to like completely potato in the late game.
Absolutely. So we wanted to make sure that in the late game, Koshka was still pretty effective, but she definitely had to build herself a little bit more of an advantage early on to make sure that she had that lead coming into late. All right.
Let's move on.
Moving on to Kroll. This is not much of a change, honestly. Cooldown decreased by 5 seconds across the board on his ultimate. This is basically just to ensure that he has a little bit more options coming into fights because he is primarily a duelist, and if he doesn't have his ultimate, it makes things a little bit rough for him, but it also makes him a little bit more useful in team fights. So if he is in that side lane split pushing, or if he's in the jungle, he's able to take those fights much more readily.
Yes.
All right. Got Lance. Speaking of things that are good at dealing with Kroll, Lance is absolutely fantastic. The Impale, the Githian Wall.
Everything in his kit says, I am made for dealing with this hero. But, so, we wanted to really lean into some of Lance's alternate builds a little bit. Like, we recently made him a lot more tanky, just to sort of have him lean into that, what he is.
Right.
As this heavily armored knight. But we wanted to also make it so, like, his crystal path, which is something that, you know, Cyberhound utterly loves.
More of a utility path.
Yeah,
than
it's
anything.
a heavy utility path. can still survive to be able to, you know, utilize that utility. So we have upped his crystal ratios on his root duration and on his damage reduction from the active portion and the passive portion of his Githyan wall.
Right, so if you are building that crystal lance, blocking something with a Githyan wall will feel extra good.
Oh, and you'll need much less crystal to get to that point.
Right. All right, Lorelei.
A little bit of tune-up, so she has a few more pools on the field.
All right, sounds good.
A lot of Lorelei players, when you're playing her, one of the things that feels sort of odd is when you put a pool down and you use another skill and it eats the pool from underneath you. For a skilled Lorelei player, you do that intentionally, of course. Sometimes you don't want that. So this change will allow her to be able to put her pool down a little bit more frequently. That way she can, you know, utilize her passive.
All right, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. All right, moving on to Lyra. This is an interesting change, right? Health ratio increased from 10% to 11%, which doesn't seem huge on her Imperial Sigil. It really isn't that big.
It's not crazy, but it adds up. It adds up.
Over the course of the game, tiny little heals, a little bit more health there, a little bit more health here.
We wanted to put in the ratio especially because we didn't want Lyra just being this monster early game that's just like, oh, you're healed, you're still healed, you're healed, and your teammates are healed.
Stay topped off forever.
Yeah, exactly. So by putting in the ratio, she has to build that health to really get that health back. So in addition to that, we have increased the slow on the Bulwark. So Bulwark, most people didn't even know it had a slow on it, but now we put a decent slow on it, and we made it so the slow is a little bit more effective for longer at early ranks.
All right, sounds good to me.
So
sounds good to me.
You're gonna have a lot of people are like, well, I can't initiate with Lyra anymore. You know, I can't portal in Bulwark. So now you can jump into a team, Bulwark 5 people and slow them, and then you can echo it and slow them again. 4 seconds of a 30% slow is nothing to scoff at.
Absolutely. And coming into 3.0, Ozo is one of the big ones to talk about, right? Because the extremely short cooldown on that Vainglory ultimate. Carney Luck getting tuned down just a little bit because, I mean, having more allies to heal you up and grant you barriers and whatnot,
yes,
he's kind of a monster.
Yeah, in addition to that ult traveling that much faster,
Absolutely.
making sure that it actually hits now on a much easier basis.
Absolutely, and that's one of the big things about him, being able to use that ultimate much more as an engage, in addition to potentially even having it up once again in the middle of a fight, makes Ozo extremely hard to take down. An aftershock on him, maybe even a clockwork, making that he's constantly healing, and with those changes to him, having Carney Luck do a little bit less kind of was fine.
Yeah, in addition to that, we did give him some love on his A. He does hit a little bit harder. So essentially, if you imagine in a meter, we tuned down the sustain meter a little bit, and we tuned up the damage meter a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, moving right on to Reza, who is interesting to see, right? Because Reza is one of those heroes where, in the hands of a skilled player, he is ridiculously good.
Fuji.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw Fuji at the pre-launch event, he was a terror.
Yeah.
But he doesn't always make it out of those fights that easily. So coming into it, using that Nether Form Detonator, Fortified Life increased quite substantially, about 80 per level, which is quite nice. In addition to having a dramatically increased crystal ratio, Reza has a lot more opportunities to actually assassinate his targets.
That's right. So Reza's obviously like you said, in the hands of a great player, it's incredible, right? But what was happening a lot is, you know, he was having serious team fight issues where we'd be jumping in and he'd get destroyed. This little bit will just allow him to take a little bit more. Also makes him a bit of a better duelist as well.
All right, makes sense to me, makes sense to me. And that's really what you want out of an assassin. If he can't take someone on 1v1, something's not quite right there. I mean, if he's fighting a Cruel or a Rhyme or Rona, yeah, that makes sense. But if he's fighting against a Ringo or Kestrel and he doesn't make it out, that's
something's wrong.
Yeah,
right?
There's something to worry about right there. All right, moving on to one of our favorites, Saw.
Saw push.
He is pushing all the turrets. As far as I can tell, he's pushing all the turrets.
Yeah. So Saw was pushing really hard, and so on the Saw change, we increased Saw's range once upon a time to 6.8, as we were talking as last match. But this was done during a time where we were testing a lot more hero changes, a lot more many heroes had even higher range increases. And so because of that, we're like, okay, and during that time, Saw was still suffering. And so when we tuned all heroes and really gave him that best in line equilibrium point, Saw all of a sudden went from being one of the worst to one of the best.
Absolutely.
And so we are pushing this range back down to where it was to really keep in line, since everyone else was brought down during that time. So he should be around there. He's already a monster due to his incredible split pushing potential.
Right, it's still not a good idea to jump on top of Saw, but he will be a little bit easier to take down, and he will not be bullying you from quite as far as he was before.
Yeah.
All right, moving
We also made him a little bit squishier late game.
Right.
Just a little bit.
Right. All right, moving on to Scarf, who has a little bit of short cooldown on his goop. Duration lasts longer, more damage on it. So overall, goop is awesome now.
It burns longer, stronger, and more frequently.
So all about that zone control on the Scarf, dropping those
Yeah.
goop pulls everywhere, making sure your opponents aren't able to move around as easily. In addition to just, if you are able to catch someone out, you actually do some dramatic damage to them.
Yes, it also makes him an incredible turret, even a better turret taker than he was before.
As if he wasn't good enough before.
Right?
All right, moving right onto Sky. Started striking right in here a little bit more frequently.
So yeah, so we tuned Sky's mobility was a little high for coming into this new patch, right? But when we tuned it down, it was a different time. Like I said, there was a period of time where heroes had different cooldowns and such that we were testing, and so we really wanted to make sure that our Surge Strike still felt good and as a core part of her kit. So we gave back 1 second cooldown at all ranks except on Overdrive, so Sky will still maintain that late game feel of once you're in that late game, you feel powerful.
Extremely mobile.
Yes.
Extremely mobile, dancing around fights, dropping those forward barrages all over the place, dropping those deaths from above, making sure you're taking out your opponents, dodging around all the skill shots. You should feel good.
You will feel really good.
Alrighty. But to deal with Sky, of course, we got Taka.
Yes. So Taka was really good. Really good. And
Crystal Taka specifically.
yeah, so we were having issues where you can go full crystal on Taka, and he would use Kaku, and he'd leave the fight at like half life and come back at full, and you're like, well, okay. And then you would hit him again, and 4 or 5 seconds later he would just Kaku all over again.
Absolutely.
And you're just like, huh.
What do you do against that?
So we really wanted to maintain Taka's identity as like this in and out hero, but we just wanted to reduce the amount of this game.
Right. All right. So just a small, well, not small, pretty substantial
it's a pretty
decrease.
substantial decrease in healing for his crystal build, which is okay.
He could use it. All right. But moving on to Varia. So Varia is one of those interesting heroes. She came out in, I believe, 2.11, and she has been pretty powerful.
She took the game by storm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So once we tuned her a bit in last patch, we wanted to really lean into her arc lightning playstyle. She was having this, like, she was, really good still, but what she would do is she would just like dash into you and throw her sphere into you, and it would chunk you for like,
right. But in any case,
yeah, so she would burst really hard. So we really want to pull away from that burst and put it more into her consistent damage. This change will essentially lower her upfront damage, but as long as you keep attacking, you'll actually outscale your ult damage.
Right, right. And this is one of the really interesting ones because Varia, as long as you're able, it's interesting, right? Because the playstyle for her is potentially just sit back and just keep throwing those Stormforge spears.
Yes.
But forcing her to be a little bit more aggressive means that she won't be able to just poke you out as easily, and if she is trying to play that game, it's much more easy to deal with her because there's less damage to dodge, basically.
Yes.
All right. And one of our favorites, Vox. Tell me a little about this one.
So, CP Vox.
So it seems like this is both a buff and a nerf, right?
Yes. We're just moving some power, like much how we did with Idris, where we moved some of his power from mid game to late game.
All right.
In Vox, we're moving some of his damage from AoE early game to late single target late game.
Makes sense, makes sense. So once he gets a lot of crystal power, he is pretty powerful against single targets.
Yeah. You're gonna find yourself hitting way harder single targets.
Right. But you will not be getting wrecked in lane by resonance bounces quite as hard. It still hurts.
That was the major issue, right? Like, you wanted to last hit that minion?
Nah.
Well.
About that. Just take this Resonance Bolt to your face.
Okay, so we got a lot of item changes. How about talk us through the Aegis and Metal Jacket change?
Alright, so we have Aegis with shield reduction and Metal Jacket. So one of the big things we've noticed playing both in Halcyon Fold and on Sovereign's Rise is that a lot of the carries buying a single Aegis or Metal Jacket means that you are really, really tough to take down. Especially if you buy both of them, you're almost unkillable. It takes fights extremely long to close out, which meant you were just facing people all across the map. And that's something you want to avoid just a little bit more. You want to make sure that when a fight started, at least someone died, right? You don't want to just constantly battle each other, all 5 people run back out because no one took enough damage. This means that assassins are a little bit more bursty, everyone's a little bit more bursty, fighting against those carries who are building that Aegis and Metal Jacket. But it also means that going that damage route is a little bit more effective, and it really incentivizes players to build potentially a little bit more damage, just try taking down their opponents, especially if they're behind. This means that the front foot team will not always just be like, hey, we're tanky, can't kill us anymore, it's over.
Yeah, exactly.
So it gives a little bit more opportunities for a back foot team to make a comeback. But, in speaking of damage, breaking point, stacks increase.
Yes, so I'm going to tackle this alongside Dragon's Eye. Since
Okay. They're comparable.
Yeah, exactly. They fulfill similar goals.
Mm-hmm.
In this scenario, fights were lasting really long, but they weren't closing out.
Right.
So
there was no breaking point.
I mean, breaking points there just wasn't enough, right? It just didn't provide enough. So we've increased the number of stacks for both of these items to really help close out that fight as if the fight gets way too long.
Right.
What we did do, though, in the situation of Dragon's Eye, because Dragon's Eye was really strong, we lowered the amount of crystal that each stack gave you, but it has a higher max.
Right, so it takes longer to stack up, but it ends up stronger.
Yes.
But the breaking even point is actually a little bit later on, so you'll need to stick in the fight a little bit longer to actually make it worthwhile to have that item over a Shattered Glass.
Yeah.
But it is still incredibly powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So Clockwork as well. So we tuned down the passive of Clockwork. It was just allowing some abilities just come up way too frequently, especially ultimates.
Right.
This tune down, it's only by a smidgen, but it should really help, you know.
Yeah, seeing
keep it
those
exactly.
Mario, like, Anvil's Hammer coming down, like, all over the place
Yeah.
was... That's rough.
Every 30 seconds or so, not even.
Yeah, though it is pretty exciting to see on some heroes, right? You put on Ozil, you put on Arden, just seeing those more
Batiste
gauntlets
loves
tossing
it.
down. Batiste is amazing with
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
It's pretty fun to see. But moving on, infusions doing a little bit more damage, making sure that if the game is at that point where it is super late, damage needs to be there.
This also goes to the what you were talking about, where carries can just be way too tanky. So we really want, if you're a carry, you should be relying on your positioning, not on the fact that you're just super tanky and your damage is higher, so you're gonna out DPS your opponent, right?
Absolutely.
So in this scenario, we've given weapon and crystal infusion more offensive stats, but we've decreased the armor and shield that they give.
Absolutely. So you really have to rely more on your position than just purely being more tanky than your opponents. We really want to make sure that when you are a little bit more on the back foot, you have an opportunity to always catch out your opponents and actually explode them. Like, if someone face checks into 5 people, they should go down. We don't want them to be like, hey, I got an infusion, a metal jacket, an Aegis, I'm just going to walk right on out of there.
Yeah, exactly. So Null Wave Gauntlet. This is one of the things that missed my radar, I suppose you could say. We did increase most ranges in the game, especially for heroes that need it. I forgot to look at this good old item.
Null Wave Gauntlet is interesting though, because there are actually a lot of use cases for it where it's just like people don't expect to see it.
No, it's really like when
It's
it comes
niche.
out, it's very niche. But with this change, you can utilize it in a large fight much more easily from the start.
Absolutely.
So fight's about to break out, you will be able to hit their captain or whoever you feel you really need to tag
Get rid of
this
those
onto.
reflex blocks.
Exactly. Much more easy, so you can make those kind of plays.
All right, sounds good. And speaking of niche items, Slumbering Husk is one of my favorite items in the game and is currently my go-to defensive item.
Yes, well, it's your defensive item. But now I feel it's going to be more people's defensive item.
Yeah, it's incredibly
It's-
powerful, especially because with the lower amount of defense and armor shielding coming out from Aegis and Metal Jacket, being able to defend yourself against burst, especially on a much more frequent basis, is quite useful. If you
Yes.
do catch a Celestial Storm to the face and it pops, then you're in a little bit of a sticky situation, but it can definitely save you from Ataka jumping in.
Yeah, and so with this change, you're going to be fortified for longer, meaning you can punch out some damage for a little bit longer.
Right?
In addition to that, it's going to be up a little bit more often. So if you do catch, the Celestial Storm at the beginning of the fight, there's a potential where it will be up right at the end of the fight, possibly.
Absolutely. All right, moving right on to Spellfire. So
This is
I
this
think
is one of the big ones.
this is one of the ones that people are pretty excited for. Having Mortal Wounds on those crystal carries
Yes.
is incredibly good. Not even on crystal carries. I actually buy this on a couple of captains they play. Just for
Really?
good measure. Yeah, why not? You're in the front
Okay.
line. You're applying it all over the place. Less healing for the enemy team is always good.
Okay, I can see this. I can see this. Especially for those captains who have some sort of crystal scaling in their kit, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I can definitely see this on, like, Lorelei or Lance even. You know, all of his abilities apply this. So, this change is huge. It finally gives crystal carries that opportunity to, apply you reduce healing from some of these higher sustain heroes.
Right. It really allows Pokemon to take the spotlight a little bit more, being able to, if you landed on, if you're playing Crystal Gwen, playing Scar, playing Celeste, just dropping some stuff onto the back line and then seeing it immediately healed up is not exactly the greatest. Now they have to dodge out for a little bit longer to make sure that their heals are actually worthwhile.
Exactly. In addition to that, because the timer is now over 3 seconds instead of 4, the DPS on it is a little bit higher.
Right,
So
right.
it's as long as you're reapplying it constantly, the damage will be higher.
Absolutely. All right. Tension Bow. Not a huge change.
Now a little bit of love for old T-Bone.
Yeah, it's good though. Tension Bow is powerful.
Yes.
Contrary to what Surprise Birthday may think, Tension Bow is a good item. All right, Travel Boots. This is a fun one. Just making sure that you don't really lose that travel bonus while you're kind of doing like your chores, clearing out the lane.
Yeah.
That always didn't feel too great, so we just wanted to make sure that when you were running from lane to lane, killing minions, you weren't slowed by doing so.
Healing Flask. So this one's an interesting one. You want to tell us about this one?
All right, so Healing Flask. The heal changed from 30% of max health to 200 plus 25 plus your time to hero level, which is a pretty dramatic change because
Yes.
30% of your health, especially on someone who is incredibly tanky, say Finn, Lance, whatever,
Yeah.
was a ridiculous amount of healing.
The item was essentially a tier 3, or like it was essentially a tier 3 item.
Absolutely.
In terms of, like,
It's a personal fountain, right?
Yes. Even better in some cases because it gave you the barrier as well. Like, it was very strong, and it wouldn't let some people just wouldn't die.
Absolutely. Especially, yeah, you get the barrier as long as you survive through. I mean, if you survive for the 5 seconds, you have the barrier, and you have 30% of your health back. It's
That was
very
a
hard
lot.
to take people down.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exact-
so
it was
j-
almost having to kill a person a second time.
Absolutely. And you put on something like Alpha, Lance, Finn. Oh, jeez.
But
it's tough.
now with this change, this is definitely going to make it so it's better in the, it's more it's not it's better for carries because they don't have the higher percentage life.
Right? It's still, the
higher
barrier is still
flat
extremely
amount.
effective, though.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's not going to scale into late game
Quite
so
as hard.
crazy, right?
Right.
Okay.
It still gives you that little bit of that sustain to make sure that having it available is still going to be very helpful.
Yes.
All right, that pretty much wraps up the hero and item changes. But we're going to be hopping into another game of 5v5, I believe, and we'll just talk a little about the map, just all the things that went into it. There's been a lot of crazy stuff that we tried out. And, I mean, if you've seen the update notes, it's a pretty comprehensive list of basically everything that we have. You might have noticed that coming out from beta and alpha, we've actually made it so the flare loader is actually part of the scout cam upgrade path. So those captains who are opting into vision will have even more vision for themselves by getting those items. And
Exactly.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm currently just trying to set up another party really quick.
No worries, no worries. All
that
right.
way we can get into that that next game much more easy.
Mm-hmm. All right,
Okay.
but just asking you a little about, I just want to ask you a little about the meta of Sovereign's Rise right now. What have you
Okay.
seen personally? Because especially in the opening couple minutes of the game, or even the first few seconds of the game, where everyone's running off their spawn platform. Do you go for the weapon orb, the crystal orb? Do you invade the enemy jungle? Do you try dropping those scout camps deep in their jungle, or what?
So, personally, what I prefer to do is, first off, it depends matchup, right?
Absolutely.
If they have a particularly strong like early game,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna really. I'm gonna try setting that early defensive vision at those points such as the bush leading into my red buff from the river,
Right.
or same thing for the blue buff, right? But if I'm playing aggressive, what I like to do is sort of try to like ping my team, like let's group up, and depending on their jungler, I want to usually hit the buff that they're going to benefit the most from.
Right. So just looking at a jungler, you can pretty quickly decide, hey, they're probably gonna go for the weapon orb or the crystal orb, and
Exactly.
if you take that away from them, that's it will slow down their clear a bit. In addition to meaning that your team now has extra experience, extra gold, and an extra buff to your name.
And on top of it all, like so, let's say they're running they're running a jungler who likes to gank, but they just don't have the tools in their kit to really gank super efficiently, right?
Right.
For example, Alpha can gank. She has those gap closers, but she can't keep you.
You're just
there.
gonna run away, right?
You're just gonna leave.
You'll
right?
run away.
So if you take that red buff from her, all of a sudden she says, "Oh well, I can't slow you.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll put a little bit of damage on you, but you're gonna be fine."
Absolutely. Yeah, getting the weapon orb and the crystal orb is pretty important. Just making sure that your opponents, you limit their options. Especially, you take the crystal orb away from a mage, someone who's really heavy on that crystal power, you dramatically reduce their sustain. In addition to, if you take away the healing tree, it's the same, right?
Yes. So that's actually another thing I've really liked is, like you help your jungler take that. A lot of times you'll help them take like red buff or something like that. But what I like to do, especially if I am very or that weapon orb, right, and if I really have a higher clear hero, I'll run to the bot treant on their side, and I'll take it.
Right. All right. Looks like we're actually into another game, so let's hop right into that, and we'll keep talking about whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about anything we want.
Anything you want.
So, just looking at this team composition, how would you decide who their jungler is and which orb buff they want to start at?
So, like, when you look at this, you're like, okay, Team A, you're probably going to see the Cruel. Like, Cruel's not much of a laner. So, if I was going to guess, it would be the Cruel in there. But they do have the option. They have a Reza, they have a Sky, both who could potentially jungle. But they're much better in lane than Cruel. So, I would guess Cruel's the jungler.
Right.
And then on the other side, you have, 3 range heroes and a captain and 1 very clear jungler. So
you got the alpha.
Yeah, exactly. So in this scenario, like, and also like they're sort of weak in that early game. You got Gwen, who's okay, Lorelei's okay, but comparatively to like Cruel or Saw, I think if they had invaded, they could have pressured that much more easily.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things we got that I think will take players a little bit of time to figure out is when do you go for those invades, because you have a lot of time early on. You can definitely make it pretty far into the enemy jungle.
Yes,
it's what do you want to do at that time? Do you want to play defensively? Do you want to play offensively? Got Humanist over there. Maybe he wants to say something. But for now, it's really interesting to see. I've seen a lot of different openings from different players. I've seen 5-man invades coming into one of the buff camps. I've seen, everyone just spread out, covering their own entrance, making sure no one's invading. But once you see an enemy,
just collapse.
You collapse, or you go invade their jungle because it's like, hey, I see 5 people walking into ours. Let's just go into theirs.
You get this like interesting dance where like one rotates in and the other side you rotate over there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's pretty exciting to see that. It means that there are a lot of really dynamic openings to the game, and every game feels different.
Yes. So, oh man, you have that new skin. I love this new box skin. I'm sorry, I was just like enthralled by
It's pretty fantastic. It's pretty fantastic.
And he's down.
All right.
Reza came in.
But some of the other changes that are on the Sovereign's Rise over House and Full is that the turrets actually have a little bit of the scaling on the turrets is a little bit different, where the mid lane turret is actually a little bit tougher than the side lane turrets. And the main reason we wanted to do that was that mid lane is the most important for your team in terms of vision control, map control, and the moment you lose your mid lane, your jungle really opens up for your enemies.
That blue buff becomes, or I'm sorry, that crystal orb becomes much more available, in addition to that, first off, it's sort of like a focal point between like the 2 lanes, right? It's right in the center, so if you're gonna go anywhere on the map, you have to go through that point first.
Right.
Right. In addition to that, Black Claw is gonna push down that lane in particular. So, just there's a lot of things that you really need that turret to be a little bit more durable for.
Absolutely, and that's one of the interesting things. Come 15 minutes when Black Cloud does spawn, knowing that he goes down mid lane is actually very important. We had actually tried having him spawn in various different lanes with like various different conditions, and it really ended up being that it made the game kind of drag out. No one knew exactly where he was going to go, so it meant that it was harder to make decisions around that that capture. All right.
Oh, man. Krulga went down there pretty hard.
It's pretty exciting.
The spot lane's looking... Oh!
A lot of damage coming out.
I was wondering if they're going to get him.
I'm actually interested in your opinion on jungling on Sovereign's Rise, because when you're jungling in Sovereign's Rise, you have a lot more options. You have 3 lanes to gank, you can go clear your jungle, you can go back to base if you need to, you can invade the enemy jungle. How do you decide what is the correct thing to do?
Okay, so... Again, this does matter from hero to hero. There's a lot of different things that come into play here.
Say you're playing a very aggressive jungler.
Okay, and so in this scenario, as an aggressive jungler, I want to gank more.
Right.
So if I'm able to communicate, I'll usually tell through pings or
on my way.
Yeah, like on my way, right? But I'll also tell people on the other side of the map to make sure to keep taking my tree ends on the edges, right?
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll clear the 4 inner camps, the 2, the weapon, the crystal orb, and the gold oak, and the
double bears, right?
Who actually, most people don't know this, it actually gives the highest amount of experience out of any camp.
There you go.
That's the experience camp.
Now you know.
Yeah.
Surprise.
So I'm sure they would have figured it out. They kept an eye on their experience bar, how much it goes up when you take it to each camp. But this just helps them a little bit.
Absolutely.
So if you take those 4 camps and you leave the other 2 for your laners, that means your laners are going to be much more healthy and a little bit more leveled, and you're able and because all your camps are gone, you have more time to gank or invade even, right? Like let's say you press a gank, maybe you don't kill them, but you push them out of lane. You can now press into their jungle a lot more safely because there's no one from that lane going to collapse down onto you.
Absolutely, and that's one of the big things. Being able to, I feel that a jungler can put as much pressure by not showing up on the map as showing up in a lane.
Exactly.
The moment you show up in a lane, the other 2 lanes have nothing to fear from you. But if you're constantly waiting in the wings, potentially there, not really showing your hand, you can put a lot of fear into your opponents.
In addition to that, you can...
Oh! That was awesome.
I missed it. What happened?
Alpha dashed in, Prime Directive, exploded 2 people, double kill instantly. That was pretty sweet.
I'm so sad I missed this.
Check the VOD.
Guess I'll have to.
I guess you will.
This alpha is in trouble.
Yep, butt going down. And here we see Ghostwing has landed 6 minutes in. So tell me a little about where would you put your priority as laners or as a jungler or even captain early on? Do you want to be putting more pressure on the Ghostwing side or toward that Black Claw side?
So Ghostwing is definitely up earlier, so if you can afford to really push down those lanes, you really get an advantage from taking it.
Right.
It also does matter. You need to have someone who can hold that Ghostwing down while your team takes it. Right.
Right.
So let's say in this scenario, Team A has got both teams actually have great junglers that can duel with Ghostwing while you have 1 or 2 teammates beating on it as well.
Right.
What I also really like to do is really have the remaining teammates push the lanes next to it, so they're forced to address that, and they're less likely to come to the Ghostwing.
Absolutely. And Ghostwing, I've heard some players say, hey, it comes at 6 minutes. It's pretty hard to take at that time. Well, that's kind of the point. If you aren't able to take it down that early, you probably have a pretty significantly, or you have a strategy built around that. And we wanted to leave that option open to players where if you do have a composition that is tailored to kill Ghostwing early on and get that big advantage, go for it.
Yeah,
but
if you have that, that Arden, Cruel, or Cruel Lyra to really just jump on that Ghostwing, the 2 of them together can usually handle Ghostwing at the moment it spawns.
It might take a while.
It'll take a while, definitely.
So you really have to make sure that your side lanes are pushed out, your mid lane is pushed out, making sure
get
that
some decent vision down, right?
Right, you gotta make sure your opponents have no idea that's going on. Otherwise, the moment they hop onto you, you'll be like, hey, I see you're doing that ghost thing. Why don't we just take that from you?
That's happened a couple times to me. That was very sadly.
That is unfortunate.
Just last stream I had Black Claw stolen from me by a fin hook when I was playing
Oof,
Cruel.
That is
I
rough
was
times.
Cruel. I had Smite. I didn't think he would deal that much damage, but
That is rough times.
he had a heavy prism. I
Speaking of
cried.
Cruel, we got just
Anyways.
going in on.
Oh, but there's that gauntlet's gonna stop him. But does he care? Oh,
cares.
So
Oh,
close.
The whiff. It's all good though. But
Oh no, he may be the one in trouble now.
right, we talked a little about junglers. I'd like to talk a little about captains because I personally find that captains are extremely fun to play on Sovereign's Rise. You have a lot more options on what you can do. You're not really tethered to any specific lane or place on the map, so you can constantly just roam around, make plays, and really be a presence on the map.
That's right. So, especially utilizing that river buff, I like.
The extra movement speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, you can really get this cool roam.
Let's go with roam.
So, I particularly like this with a couple of the heroes that can apply more permanent pressure,
Okay.
whether in the form of damage or oh, that saw just lit up the turret and the Lorelei. So so like let's say you have a Lyra who's
Right.
able to move between these different lanes and heal each laner, but because by the time you go from one lane to the next, your sigil is pretty much just up again.
Right.
So it's really powerful when you do that, because then you can be like, okay, I'm moving. Especially if you're coordinating with your team, your team could like, you can move to this lane, you push this wave really hard, you get all the ambient gold. You move to the next lane, you heal your ally and harass the enemy, and then get all the ambient gold. And then you move to the next lane, you do the same thing.
I see a trend here where you just want to get ambient gold, huh?
It's great.
It
why,
is.
Why don't you want? Everyone wants money.
It's actually a very interesting thing to kind of account for, because while you do want to put down a lot of lane pressure everywhere, it's also a matter of where can you get the most gold for yourself. Where can you actually, because you do need items, you need gold, you need to make sure that you, coming into the mid to late game, you do have some level of power. Being able to roam around properly and make sure that you are at the right place at the right time to either save your allies or to soak up gold is extremely important.
Definitely. So, I will say there's really a balance between it though as well. Like if one of your lanes is in trouble, you do have to stay with them, right? Like you do have to. There's a payoff, right? There's a give and take.
Right.
So you can, really bust that move and, get as much gold as you can and try and like, it's like, here's a heal, I'll help you push a little bit and then I'm gone. But like in the situation where you have like a hyper carry, like a Varia or a Vox who, is late game going to really succeed, it may be better just to take that hit to your own, income and make sure that they succeed.
Right, and I think that's actually a very important thing to take note of, making sure that you really identify who is the person on your team that you should spend the most time working with, and making sure that they get the most gold that they can, get the most levels that they can, or even just to assist your jungler roaming around the map, can sometimes be the most effective thing to do. You don't always have to be a lone wolf.
No, you don't. So, Saw just took the second turret. Seems like Saw is doing quite fine. I do like this pickup on Reza. He's picked up a Spellfire.
Right.
There is an enemy Arden and an Alpha and a Lorelei on the enemy team. So the Spellfire is going to do great work, really helping reduce all those sustain abilities that those heroes have.
Absolutely. And that's one of the great things about the new Spellfire, right? The Mortal Wounds coming out is absolutely awesome. But, I mean, talking about just various roles, let's talk about the side laners first. What is important for a side laner?
That's a good question. So, it depends which side lane you're talking about. Usually the bot lane, I prefer to see a weapon hero of some sort that can since they're close to the weapon orb, right? It really helps utilize that. Even if your jungler takes it, maybe you're split pushing later on in the game, you can take it later on.
Right.
Especially if your jungler maybe invades and steals their weapon orb.
Yeah, basically having both a weapon and a crystal carry on your team is a good idea. Whether or not you have more than that is not too important, but having at least one is pretty much a good idea at all points in time.
It's optimal if you go a 2-2-1, right, where you have 2 crystal, 2 weapon, and a captain.
Right. I've even seen some team compositions where it's like you go say 2 crystal carries, 1 weapon carry, and a more tanky, supporty person, like a primary support and kind of a secondary support who,
Yeah.
maybe like an Arden who goes after shotgun and a more defensive item.
Yeah, like yeah, definitely. So in those scenarios, you definitely try. If you're going to do that, though, I would definitely have the one person, like say the one weapon carry. Make sure that there's someone who could really scale into that late game, like a Baron or something like that.
Right.
Really like dish out the weapon damage you need, that your team needs, so they're still forced to build armor, even though 3 of you are crystal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, give a quick tip to our viewers. What is your one big tip for side laners? What do you want to do? What do you want to pay attention to when you're playing?
Don't ignore your team.
Okay.
So this definitely comes down to a lot of map awareness. When you are a side laner, it is great to push and take a turret. But if you let's say you even take a tier 2 turret, but if you have sacrificed 2 other lanes or a huge objective for the sake of taking this, it may not be worth it. Sometimes it's better to run up into mid, or rotate for your team and help them where they're needed. If you see them, like maybe the enemy is pressuring your jungle, rotate. It's okay for you to lose a little bit of farm if since the amount of gold you will gain by rotating is going to be higher for your net team.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And that's something really important to keep in mind, being able to make sure that your teammates are succeeding when you are. And one of the big things is to make sure that if you're doing really well, just give your team some help, and you'll make them do well too, and it's less for you to wear out on your own.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've seen so many people like post us, oh, I was like 8-2 or something, but my team still did badly. Well, it probably means if you have 2 deaths and 8 kills, but your team is suffering, you may want to spread the wealth a little bit by helping them out.
Spread the love a little bit. All right. How about that last position, that mid lane?
Yeah. So
What's the important thing to watch out for there?
I would definitely generally run a crystal hero there.
Okay. Is there any particular reason for that?
It is literally a hop, skip, and a jump away from the crystal orb.
All right.
Crystal orb, incredibly powerful, gives you lifesteal and crystal percent damage increase. So it has a crystal carry that's huge for you, right?
Right.
Like
that sustain, that extra damage, always good.
It's huge. And so having them there, usually also crystal carries are able to clear waves much more easily. Like they have a bit more AoE, so they're able to push out the mid lane, which also allows them to rotate down using that river buff.
Right.
And so I would definitely generally run a solid CP laner in mid.
So would you consider saying, you say CP laner, but I mean that could mean a lot of things. You can go Crystal Vox, Celeste, you can go Reza, even Crystal Taka. Do you have any specific thing in mind?
So I would usually lean towards a ranged, because if you're a melee and you're walking up to the middle lane to be able to last hit, that puts you in a dangerous area, considering that you're much closer to those 2 bushes on either side,
right?
And someone could just jump out and could be dead
Absolutely.
in the next few seconds, it happens, which is why I personally prefer running someone like let's say you're playing Varia. She's able to use her max range chain lightnings to really push and farm a wave pretty well, and then this also makes mobility heroes who have a bit of mobility, like a dash or something, like for example also Varia can dash back to their turret very quickly to safety.
So having a little bit of mobility is generally a good idea. Having a little bit more wave clear, generally a good thing. And it's hard to find the balance, right? Because depending on what your teammates pick, you sometimes want a little bit more damage for your team.
Yeah.
Maybe you want a higher ability to roam. If you have some really heavy, some really solid late game carries, or some late game scaling heroes on your team on the side lane, maybe you want to be able to roam down and up a little bit more often.
So something I would definitely state though is, going back, we did mention the bot lane, we didn't talk about the top lane.
Alright, let's talk about the top a little bit.
So top is definitely one where you want someone more high sustain.
Okay.
So
and why is that?
So, because the weapon orb is positioned on the bottom side of the map, your top lane will fight against their bot lane, right? So, you really want to utilize someone who has a higher amount of sustain, because not only is it likely that that's going to be a ranged weapon carry who's going to harass you, or, you know, even a melee weapon carry who can harass you.
Okay.
But they may have a red buff, so they may try to bully you. And two, you're more likely to see ganks coming out because weapon orb is much more of it's a great ganking tool, right? It's huge. So this, if they take it, the first place nearest to them is that bot lane.
Right.
So they're probably gonna try and, you know, bully you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense, because having that extra slow on the base attack means that those ganks are much more likely to succeed, and it is something that you have to be very aware about, because if they jump on you and you don't have any mobility and you don't have, say, your sprint active on your boots, you're kind of a sitting duck, so gotta watch out for that.
Yes, definitely.
Alright. So coming into this late game-ish area in this match right now, we see Black Cloud has been captured. What, in your mind, is correcting to do when Black Cloud is captured?
So,
as the pushing team.
As the pushing team, usually I like to group up and escort it.
Okay.
There are situations though where maybe they have a better team fight composition. You just want to let it push, and instead you want to push a side lane.
Okay, makes sense. So basically, if you think that you could take them in a head-on fight, or even go even in the head-on fight, pushing with Black Cloud is good.
You want to escort it, yeah, exactly. Oh, you are in trouble.
Absolutely, and it really forces your opponents to engage you as opposed to the other way around. And in this situation, I mean, blue team got engaged on, they didn't do so hot, but...
Why are we zooming in on the dead Saw? Like, someone's back there is really happy.
Oh boy.
Shin, do you not like Saw? What's up?
Alright. So we did have, Black Cloud went down pretty quickly, but was able to take down one turret, and that's generally what you expect out of Black Cloud. Maybe one turret, maybe two. If you're pushing along with it very effectively, it really allows you to open up the mid lane against your enemies. Ooh. Nice try coming out from Cruel.
If that Arden wasn't there, I think he actually would have stolen that.
Right, so we see Ghostwing captured, right? What did they do? What's the thing? What is the play? We talked about Black Cloud a little bit. What is the play with Ghostwing?
So it does give you that shield and regen, right? Which is great. But I do think it's like, because it is not something that pushes immediately, it's okay to group up or go heal. Like you see this Arden here has like half-life. He may be okay, but he may want to actually just go back. He could have went back by now and healed a decent amount of life.
Alright, that makes sense, So one of the big things is just making sure that you are taking advantage of the barrier portion of it. But the big thing about it is, the 300 gold for your team per person is a pretty nice boon. It's kind of like similar to the gold miner in Galaxy Unfold.
Yes.
It's not a huge buff. It probably won't win you the game every single time, but it is a pretty substantial amount of sustain.
Oh my goodness. So it is much harder to... Oh no, Cruel, you're crazy. You're okay. That's not that bad. You took out one, I guess.
Pretty impressive right there. All right, so 3 down for the blue side.
Again. Okay. Doomhouse, is that you?
Doomhouse is not a fan of Saw, it seems. Or maybe he's a fan of... I mean, I don't even know.
Oh, it's Humanist.
Humanist.
Humanist is not a fan.
It's Humanist. Oh, Humanist. What are you doing? I see he's a fan of Saw.
He's a huge fan of Saw.
Alright, so...
And Vox, apparently.
We're nearing 22 minutes in this game. Both teams, a lot of turrets have fallen already. The map is, relatively dark on both sides. What do you do to progress?
So, one, I think this is the point in which vision becomes most important, right?
Right.
I highly recommend picking up, the scout camp upgrades by this point of the game. If not, you've done it earlier. You really want to try it, like, this point, vision is so key. Seeing your enemy's movements defines your next actions, right? So, by placing some deep vision in, you're able to see if they're separated, if they're rotating together as a team, where they're going. Like, maybe if you have the information, that means you, as a team, can, and they don't, you can outplay them by any means. You can split, you can see them rotate, we'll split push around them. Oh, they're splitting up? Well, let's get together and let's like knock down 2 people. With this point in the game, death timers are going to be much higher, right?
Absolutely.
If you take 1 or 2 kills, all of a sudden you find yourself in a huge advantage. You can take a turret, you can take an objective, Ghostwing or Black Claw. Like I can't stress enough how important vision is in this point of the game.
Right, and right now you see both objectives are up on the map, so both Black Claw and Ghostwing are available. And we see the red team, they are a little bit behind, so they're gonna have a rough time pushing into this, but they're not too far behind. Should they go directly into this fight, or what should they do?
This is really dangerous.
Alright, looks like the red team is hopping right on in. Ghostwing is extremely low. The backline is being jumped on both sides. Dodgebreaker goes down. Alpha is rebooting. Alpha does reboot, so she is able to do a little more damage. Ghostwing is about to get captured by the red team. And right now, it looks like the fight is going pretty evenly, but the red team definitely has an advantage, and this is a pretty big comeback for them.
Yeah, it was a shame Alpha got double barriers placed on her, but she had already ulted. So that was wasted, unfortunately.
I mean, that does happen sometimes. You got an Arden left on his lonesome, so probably gonna go down right here.
It is okay. There's the zoom in on the saw again. Thank you, humanist.
And that's exactly what you were talking about, right? Not having the correct vision to deal with and engage.
Yes.
I mean, the blue side, they did have a scout cam in the brushes, seeing them approach, but it was a little bit too late, and they were a little bit uncoordinated on what they planned to do with that Ghostwing. They weren't really sure, should we finish it? It was extremely low, so they were really split on their decision making.
In addition to that, that AoE mortal wounds that the Ghostwing was applying, massive for them, right?
Absolutely, and that's a really big thing, right? Being able to watch out for that more wounds coming out from both Black Claw and Ghostwing can really change the course of the fight, because even if you're ahead, not being able to take advantage of your fountain or crucible or even your healing flask as much can make a huge difference.
Too. Yeah, exactly. I think that was a great example of the dangers of trying to force an objective.
Right, and right now we see the red team, they have captured Black Claw. They should probably push alongside it, but their Vox is in the top lane, so this is a good opportunity for the blue side to take a little bit of a 4-on-5.
Oh no. Oh no, but I feel like the blue team isn't there for... Oh no.
Ooh, the stuns come out. A lot of damage coming out onto both sides. Saw might be going down, but does survive. Black Claw is doing going to be doing a lot of damage to that turret, though. It's going to be quite interesting to see how this plays out.
Nice Surge Strike there.
All right. Alpha jumps right on in.
Oh, Saw goes down.
Black Claw burning up
Look at the amount of barriers that's being placed on Alpha. Oh, stunned, though. Stunned again.
And that's the thing to do. A lot of damage coming out.
Oh, the explosion!
And this is a pretty big comeback, right? Because the red team was pretty behind for the majority of the game, but some well-played team fights, some well-placed vision means that they will likely take this game at this point.
Yeah, I don't see how they can come back. Poor Arden here. He's on his last, now no legs. And that will be game. All right. Team B will be taking this one.
Yeah, it's pretty solid coming out from both sides. 26 minutes into the game. The red team
loving that new spot skin, clearly.
Yeah, they do take the victory, and 32-27. You would have guessed that the blue team would have come out with the win, but coming into late game, the scaling of the red side was just a little bit better, so they are able to take the victory here.
You definitely have, like, I really think the key point to this was you had those ranged weapon carries coming into light, right?
Absolutely.
Lorelei is a monster late game, right? She has a lot of utility. She has stuns, shielding, slows and movement speed buffs, right?
Just making sure her friends are taken care of.
Yeah, she takes care of her team. You which, as you said earlier, like having that secondary support almost, she definitely, I think, filled that role.
Yeah, I think that's actually very important because you see Arden, he had the Echo, he had Fountain, he had Crucible, the War Treads, but having that extra pile of barrier, that extra amount of protection coming out from Lorelei really made the difference in these fights. It made it so hard to take down Alpha when she jumped in. It meant that Gwen and Vox were both extremely powerful in those fights. They were hard to take down. Every time someone jumped on them, they had just barriers after barriers and healing after healing.
Yes, definitely. You had Cruel going a little bit tankier than I would have preferred. I think he could have gone a spell sword or something,
reasonable.
Or another crit item would have been actually really good. But it's like he went the double armor because he had the two weapon ears were beating directly on him, right? Gwen was dealing a lot of damage that game.
No
Did you see-
kidding.
Did you see that? Like she popped people
Some
for
of
like
those boomsticks were
yeah, it was
pretty
like,
heavy.
Oh, okay. Like she has a tension bow even like
Mhm.
I think with that new tension bow buff plus the boomstick buffs to Gwen, it's really gonna help her.
She's a happy camper right now.
Oh yeah, I think she's super good.
All right, but in any case, we're gonna wrap things up right here. So I hope you guys had a good time. Hope you enjoyed listening to Nivmet talking about all these updates, all the balance changes that were made in this 3.0 update. Go enjoy some 5v5, enjoy some 3v3. Just have a good time out there in Vainglory, and we will see you next time.
Take care, guys.
Bye bye.
That's how we do it. Yeah. Yo.